In what is oddly not the first film of the year to boat an exclusive group of people out to an island for an experience, a very selected group of people have been invited to an island to experience the meal of a lifetime. Hi, I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, and this is my review of The Menu. I'm a blind film critic, so that means I can't see the food. We'll call it the food. So, I watched this film with audio description, and actually, like that part. I said it jokingly, but that part has been really sad for me because I used to be a big fan of Top Chef, as a reality series, and it was always like the show that makes you hungry, where you're like, oh my god, I wish I could cook like that. Jesus, oh my god, I look so. What is that? What did you call it? Oh my, that's a what? You put what in that? That was what I was doing for like, you know, 13, 14, 15 seasons, whatever, until I lost my vision. So, yeah, I guess I might have been in this room. I doubt it. I mean, I don't consider myself a foodie. I eat whatever. So, I just watch Top Chef. So, that's it. But yeah, some people get put into this room. They get invited to a super elite restaurant. That we actually learned through conversation. This is not like the opening of this restaurant. This restaurant's been there, so there's no reason. It's not like people have been invited to this mysterious, like once in a lifetime pop up restaurant on an island that just happened out of nowhere. Which I found was kind of interesting because there's a scene where we get a tour of the island, but then later on it's revealed that at least at least two of the people have been there before. So what, they just keep touring the island every time they come? So it's just like, yeah, everything's in place. This is exactly how we left it. No, cool. Like, does everybody get the tour, or did this group get the tour? Like, what's the truth? That was there are questions that when you get into it, but they didn't really affect my enjoyment. It's just like afterwards, I looked at things and I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand that. I don't know that followed through. But, man, this film is fucking good. This film is great. It's one of my favorite films of the year. Easily. Yeah, it is everything. First of all, I was a little worried because people were being very coy about what this film is about, and I have to be very coy about what this film is about too, because this film evolves. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to escape the fact that at some point, shit goes the other way. IMDb classifies this as a horror film. And it's really hard to avoid knowing that that things do not pan out well for our beloved restaurateurs and their patrons. Some stuff does happen. So, because of that, that's all you get. You just have to know that at some point this movie switches genres on you. This film just takes a different approach. Although there's always sort of an undercurrent to it, a little bit of an unease in the way things are being presented, so that way you won't totally be taken off guard. It doesn't feel like... It's not like... When people say it's a comedy, they don't mean like it's an Adam Sandler. This isn't like Happy Gilmore, and then suddenly it turns into, Evil Dead. It's not, it's not like, it's not that. But, there's a hint of something you can kind of feel, and it moves through. Perhaps because Triangle of Sadness is out there. There's a little bit of both, in a little bit of the same sort of thoughts in both of these films. They unique. I think they pair well together, to use a chef term there. Pair well. But yeah, it's a room full of people, room full of faces and characters and people that you'll recognize. Some of them are just kind of there. They don't necessarily have a massive impact on the film. John Leguizamo, for example, is here. He plays an actor, and a famous actor, and I don't. I mean, he didn't make or break the film for me. Janet McTeer is in this, and she's just, again, one of the patrons. The sort of the main performances in this film, if I had to hone in, most people have honed in on the obvious that it's Anya Taylor-Joy and Ray Fiennes. That, and by the way, it's Ray. So if you don't hear people saying Ray Fiennes, you hear people saying Ralph Fiennes. Those no, this no, it's not Ralph. And yeah, so it's easy to it's obvious that those two excel and steal the film, but there's something to be said for Nicholas Hoult and Hong Chau's performances here too. I think the film depends a lot on them and their choices and their experiences, sort of as the seconds actually to Anya Taylor-Joy and Ray Fiennes. So Nicholas Hoult plays the whatever to Anya Taylor-Joy. The sort of, we don't really get to explore the depth of their relationship until later on. So they're together at the beginning of the film. This is some sort of a date. However long they've been together, you're not given that information at the top of the thing. You'll find out, but you just don't get that information at the top, so I'm not giving it to you. So he's somebody who's really enthusiastic about food, and there's some really interesting twists with his character, but not in with Nicholas Hoult. It could be anything, because that's a dude who takes any performance now, and Nicholas Hoult is down for anything. I've seen, like, I've noticed ever since Nicholas Hoult came out of About a Boy, he's just, hey man, whatever you need me to do, I'm good for it. You know, he's up for whatever. But there's such an earnestness in his character here that works so well, that I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen to this character or what they're trying to do with him, but he is really killing this whole like foodie thing. Like, he is like a super fan of food. I mean, this dude has watched every single cooking show. He knows all of the terminology, and that's supposed to be his character. They're all sort of representational of all of the different characters around the room, representational of different things in life. There's a food critic. There's some angel investors who invested in the restaurant. There's a longtime couple that has frequented the chef's restaurant before. There's, of course, Leguizamo, who pretends to know a lot about food, so call himself a foodie, and he's just kind of like a celebrity poser. And the people that they bring along with them, not everybody really deserves to be in that room, but they are. You know, that's sort of the weird thing about it, is that even the chef, there's some inconsistencies with, like, why are you here? Like, oh well, I don't want to. There's one, he asks one person, because they finally get down to one person, and they're like, well, what about her? And he doesn't really know. Even Ray Fiennes doesn't really know why she's there. He's like, I'm sorry, I don't know why. Where did you go to school? Brown. Well, I'm sorry. It's just like this passing, like, well, sorry you got invited here. Sorry your person brought you. And but he hones in on Anya Taylor-Joy was not supposed to be there because the menu is like specifically crafted to certain people and their backstories and their history, and basically I guess this is kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but Nicholas Hoult was supposed to be bringing somebody else, and he brought Anya Taylor-Joy, and that becomes this huge thing for Ray Fiennes, like to try to figure out. And they're trying to figure each other out because she is so underwhelmed by the experience that's bothering him, and that's what makes the film great. Is it's a back and forth between the two of them because he's an artist and he's about the craft of his food. He takes this very seriously. He tries to create the perfect meal. And he has this team of people that meticulously go through everything. And he's got this one girl in the room who looks at it and she's like, I don't know what the fuck this is. Like she knows that some of it is just pretentious bullshit. And she's like, no, like this is not food. And so they have this really interesting back and forth because it wasn't supposed to be her, it was supposed to be somebody else. So obviously, Nicholas Hoult had another pretentious foodie friend that was supposed to come along with him and then didn't. So he grabbed Anya Taylor-Joy and was like, "Come on, let's go." And then Ray Fiennes is like, "God damn it." So that makes for a good film. But pretty much everything that happens in the first act of the film is not that is not spoilers. That's not the twist. There's a point in the film where you very clearly somebody flips the light switch, and the film just goes in a completely different path. And from that point on, are spoilers, and that's what I have to avoid. So from that point on, is that's where the spoilers are. So. Yeah, who these characters are is not really a spoiler. They're all there. They all represent different things, and it's what happens from there. And is it what you expect? I don't know. It's not what I expected. I expected something different. And I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't get what I thought I was going to get. In terms of when people are like, "Oh, it's a horror film," this landed for me on the other side of, I don't think it's a horror film. I've seen worse, So I was a little hesitant because this dropped on HBO Max just a few days after I released my top 10 horror films of the year. I was like, oh shit, this would release on HBO Max right after. But I don't consider this a horror film. I thought it was a comedy. I liked it. I laughed. I laughed more than I was like horrified. I think even the horror elements are funny most of the time. I mean, it's just that kind of film. With two outstanding performances. Ray Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy are both incredible in this film and absolutely deserve to be in whatever kind of awards consideration we could possibly get them in. If they snuck into either one of their races and got a nomination, I would not be mad. They both deserve it. They're incredible in their roles. So, yeah, it's one heck of a film. I've seen a lot of people debate this film and about its artistry and what does it mean, and the craft. Talking about the craft and the representation and how it's presented. And the funny thing is, nobody ever talks about the director. This film is, they're like, oh, this film is all about the artistic representation, and you can take a lot of this and put it into film, and we're film critics, and there's a critic in here, a food critic, and oh man, seeing that representation. And I never heard anybody talk about the director and the choices that the director made. And I thought actually this film was really creative. I was looking at the director, and I think sometimes people are hesitant with certain directors, and they're just like, maybe if we just don't acknowledge them, they'll go away. We'll just pretend like the film is really good, and we just won't bring up the director. But this is made by the same guy who did What's Your Number? Which I laughed also when I read that. I was like, wait, what? What was the last feature film he directed? what's your number? This guy's been directing mostly TV shows this whole time. So it's amazing that the menu is as good as it is. Because obviously, while doing things like Succession and Game of Thrones, he's honed his craft. Because if he went straight from what's your number to the menu, that was never going to happen. This guy was never going to pick up directorial skills that would take him from a Chris Evans, Anna Faris rom-com that nobody remembers to the menu. This is, I don't think you can't talk about the artistry and and talk about how symbolic this film is and all the symbolism without talking about the script and the direction. It just doesn't work that way. Like, where do you think that all came from? You know, all that symbolism is written into the script by the screenwriters, which is why this film needs a screenwriting nomination, if you love it so much. And all of those choices that are made by the director. So yeah, this is very much a film where I'm kind of surprised at the lack of talk that I've heard in other reviews about the screenplay and director, because those are two things that I feel like deserve to be talked about a little bit more. Anyway, it's a great film. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you wait too long, this thing is going to be spoiled for you anyway. Too many people are already talking about it. It's what is a spoiler for this film, and the answer to that is, you could say that this film. Usually, we talk about films being presented in 3 acts. I would say this film is presented in 2, only because there's a clear divide in the film. You could find 3 acts, but what you're most looking for is the moment the shoe drops. And when the shoe drops, everything from that point on is a spoiler. Everything before that point is not a spoiler. So, there's something that really happens before the shoe dropping that is actually a spoiler. Because the film is like it just completely just switches tones. So I wouldn't worry too much about if you hear too much about the beginning or the characters or anything like that. None of that would change. It's all in the second half of the film. It's like once you pull back the curtain, once you find out why everyone's there and what's really happening, what's going on, and what the fate of the Furious is. That somebody's got to use that title at some point, right? Then yeah, that's where you get it. But please watch the menu. I don't think it's gonna horrify you nearly as much as some people. It's got, yeah, it is rated R for graphic violence, and that's fair. I won't lie, that's fair. But it's in the world of horror films, we've not even close this year. There's been worse films this year. So in terms of violence and gore, it just has violence in it. But I don't know that this is definitely not the goriest film of the year, or the grossest or anything like that. It just is violent. I don't know how to say, without spoiling it. This has violence in it. If that turns you off, I'm sorry. It's also funny, and it has great acting, and I found it incredibly entertaining. So this will be a movie that I remember, and I'm really glad I got to see it. So the audio description is great. It describes the food as much as humanly possible, so that way we can get in on the experience, and the characters and the choices, and you know, what they're wearing, and the atmosphere of the restaurant and the island they're on, and I picked up on so much, and the you know, chef's coats, and just there's a scene where Ray Fiennes has to craft something he's making food, and it's sort of this like dramatic moment, and we're watching him sort of go through the steps of crafting this piece of food, and it's just really well described. So good audio description. There wasn't anything where I was like, oh, I wonder what's happening. No. And then the absolutely bonkers stuff that happens is really well described as well. So yeah, this has an ending to it, so you'll enjoy. And that's my somewhat spoiler-free version. I consider it spoiler-free because I don't think, because I know where the spoilers exist. So they exist over here, not over there. Yeah, I'm gonna give The Menu an A. This might be, this is either gonna be an honorable mention or it's gonna be in my top 10. We'll see. I feel like I've said that more than 10 times, so I'm concerned about my top 10. Well, I don't know. This has been a good year for film, so The Menu is just another example for me of what's out there. It's on HBo MAX with audio description, so check it out. Please subscribe. I'm so close to 100. I'm like on the precipice of 100. I could fart my way across 100 if my farts could subscribe. Yeah, so it'd be nice to be a triple digit YouTuber. I feel like people see 3 digits and suddenly they just go, ooh, he's a little bit more legit. So yeah, there's something about having a 1 in front of your thing that seems to have people take you more seriously. And then of course, once you get the 4 digits, then you're like, whoa, I'm in a different level. And then so on and so forth. So, yeah, I also have a website, macthemovieguy.com. I have a Twitter, @macthemovieguy. You can follow me there. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org, where you can find other movies that have audio description and where you can watch them. And you can go to theadna.org and see who is narrating your favorite films and television series. That is it for me today. I feel like I could talk about The Menu for a year. Yeah, so please watch it. And I will review something else for you guys, and see you on the other side.